Dr. Trosher. In a minute, I'm going to come in and talk with you about your specific recommendations. But first, I want you to understand what it is that we do here, how it works, why it works, so that way you have all the information that you need to be in the driver's seat. After this video, you'll be able to better understand how your condition is leading to the symptoms that you're experiencing, but more importantly, how that condition can affect your health. And I think that we can agree that health in America is on the decline. The World Health Organization even did a study with the 40 most industrialized countries in the entire world, and America came in 37th out of 40 when it comes to health. Now, you might ask, why is that? America is the richest country in the world, we're the most powerful, we're the most technologically advanced. We spend the most on healthcare, not just as a whole system, but per person. We spend the most on healthcare than any other country in the entire world. And the reason that we're still at the bottom and not at the top is because we no longer have a system that focuses on health. We have a system that focuses on disease and sickness, and it's much more expensive to have a system that focuses on disease and sickness rather than health and wellness. The reason is because we always focus on the false claim that if you look good and you feel good, you must be healthy. It's just like saying that if you're not short, you must be tall, or if you're not poor, then you must be rich. So we always say if you're not sick, you must be healthy. But it's a pretty dangerous way of thinking. Let's just follow that. If you think that you're sick, you go where? To the doctor. You go to the doctor, they give you medication. Here's the question. If you take medication, is it revolutionizing our society? No, drugs are not making us healthier. Now, which country do you think takes the most drugs out of any country in the entire world? That's right, the United States of America takes the most drugs. We're 5% of the world's population. We take 80% of its drugs. That's a staggering number. So you'd think we'd be at the top. The thing is that taking drugs does not make you healthy. So that's why America is not at the top. Taking drugs has nothing to do with health. It has everything to do with managing sickness and disease. And that's why the United States will continue to spend tons and tons of money on their health care and not get any healthier. What we need to do is focus on health and wellness rather than sickness and disease. What does a plant need to be healthy? A plant needs sunlight and water. It's a very natural thing, so of course we treat it naturally. So why is it that when we have a sick family member, we're looking in the medicine cabinet, or we're going to the medical doctor to try and get a prescription for some chemicals that can suppress symptoms? Well, it comes from the idea that feeling good and looking good means that we're healthy. And so what do humans need to be healthy? Well, we need four things. We need oxygen, we need water, we need food, and we need a fourth thing that we'll talk about in just a second. With those things, 3 minutes or so, you could go without oxygen. More than that, you're gonna die. You go 3 days without water. You could probably go 30 days without food. But the fourth thing, you can't go a single second without brain function. You need to have your brain working at all times, otherwise you cannot function. When we talk about brain function, what we're really talking about is the brain sending messages through the spinal cord, and then the spinal cord sending messages through the nerves. Those nerves go to every single organ, system, and tissue in your entire body. And sometimes those nerves are stopped from being able to send messages by spinal bones that are not moving the way that they're supposed to move. When they put pressure on those nerves, they cause like a kink in a garden hose. Same thing. When you put a kink in a garden hose, the water can't get from the spigot to the nozzle. Even though there's nothing wrong with the spigot and there's nothing wrong with the nozzle, if there's a kink in the garden hose in the middle somewhere, you're not going to get as much water out. It's the same thing that happens in your spine when a subluxation is present. When those spinal joints are not working well enough to put pressure on that nerve. So when we think about subluxation and messages coming down from the brain, I always think about Christopher Reeves. He played Superman back in the day, and he was a celebrity. What happened to him, he fell off of a horse and he broke his neck. When he broke his neck, his heart, kidneys, lungs, none of that stuff could work anymore. And the question is, did he hurt any of that stuff? He did not hurt any of those organs. What he did was, he severed the communication from the brain to those organs. So the problem wasn't really in the organs. You could take those organs, put them in somebody else, and those organs would work perfectly fine. What he did was, he severed the communication, and that's what's important here. In Christopher Reeves' case, we were talking about a spinal cord injury. In your case, and everyone else in the world, from pregnant ladies and their children to Olympic athletes and even 95-year-old grandmas, we're talking about subluxations and how that can affect your brain function, which directly correlates to your health and well-being. Now, subluxations, again, to reiterate, they're when The brain can't get messages through to the body, and the reason that happens is spinal joints will not move appropriately, and they will put pressure on those spinal nerves that are trying to get out to those organs. When you have pressure on that spinal nerve and it's causing interference, that's called a subluxation, and that's what chiropractors treat. Subluxations can cause symptoms, however. Let's take, for example, a subluxation in your mid-back. When a nerve, your mid-back, that's controlling the stomach, doesn't work appropriately, the stomach might have a symptom like acid reflux. When we have acid reflux, we're not usually thinking about a chiropractor. We're usually reaching for Tums, Nexium, Omeprazole, something like that to help suppress the symptoms, when in fact it could be caused by a subluxation in the mid-back, where a joint is not moving appropriately, putting pressure on the nerve that goes to the stomach. When there's a subluxation in the low back, impinging a nerve down there, well, that nerve might go to control sensation into the leg. Some people call that sciatica. When you have sciatica going into your leg, you're usually thinking about a chiropractor. So even though one symptom might cause you to think, well, this is not a chiropractic issue, they're actually both chiropractic issues, because subluxations can cause both of those symptoms to happen. When those subluxations go uncorrected, they can make physical changes to your spine to try to take pressure off of the nerves. So let's look at some x-rays that demonstrate how subluxations can change the biomechanical structure of the spine and affect your nervous system, resulting in lower quality of health and symptoms such as pain and dysfunction. Every neck should have a forward curve, just like a banana. Straightening it smushes the banana. Straightening the neck smushes the spinal cord. Because remember, the spinal cord is the conduit that goes through the spinal canal and sends information to the rest of the body. Remember the garden hose. We don't want to kink the garden hose or put any pressure on that, because we want the information to get from the brain to the rest of the body. This is an MRI of the neck. This fat white line is the spinal cord as it travels down through the canal that your spinal bones make for it. In this position, it's relaxed and there's no pressure on it, so it can work the way that it's supposed to. When it comes to that curve in your spine, the most optimal curve that takes the most pressure off of the spinal cord is a 43-degree arc. A 43-degree arc is the most stable structure in nature. We are constantly using the body's perfect design for inspiration when designing structure in our modern world. The next bone that we're going to talk about is the very top bone in the spine. That's called the atlas. That's the same bone that Christopher Reeves broke when he fell off of that horse. It should go up at a 31-degree angle. It should be like an airplane taking off at 31 degrees. That's the optimal position that it needs to be in order to take pressure off of the spinal cord and brainstem as it comes through that area. So what are the long-term effects when subluxations go uncorrected for years? In phase 1 of spinal degeneration, your neck goes from a curved position, that 43-degree arc, more looking like a pencil, straight. Now you might think, well, why does it matter if my neck is straight? Well, when it's in the curved position, it's got a lot more slack. It's got more space for that information to come from the brain to the rest of the body. When it goes straighter, it stretches the spinal cord out, making it more narrow. Imagine you're trying to drink a milkshake through a big fat straw. Well, that's optimal. You're going to be able to get the milkshake from the bottom of the cup up to your mouth way easier. If you stretch it, just like the spinal cord would be stretched in that straight position, it's going to turn it more into like a coffee stir. Now, if you try to drink a milkshake through a coffee stir, it would be much harder for you to get the milkshake into your mouth. That's the same thing that happens when we go from a normal functioning 43-degree arc into a straight neck in phase 1 of spinal degeneration. Studies show that stretching of the spinal cord only 5 to 7 centimeters is enough to cause disease. Because when we're talking about disease, we're really saying the brain and nerves can't communicate with the organs, and the organs stop working properly. This picture is phase 2 of spinal degeneration. We have a lot of people come into the clinic that already know they have spinal degeneration or degenerative disc disease or spinal arthritis or whatever you want to call it. But they think there's nothing that they can do about it because they were told it was a normal part of aging. Well, I'm going to show you how that's not true. The space that you see in between here, the dark space, that's the disc. That's the same kind of disc that we talk about when we talk about a herniated disc or a bulging disc, same thing. That space is supposed to be big and open and even. What you can notice up here at the top is the space is big and open and even. Then when you look at the bottom disc down here, you see that it's much thinner. That disc is degenerated. It's starting to wear down and become unhealthy. So the question is, are these two discs the same age? And yes, they are the same age. They were born on the exact same day. If age caused discs to degenerate, then all discs of the same age would display the same amount of spinal degeneration. But we can see here that that's not true. It has to do more with lack of motion and subluxation in those areas rather than age. Studies show that the weight of a dime on the nerve reduces the function by 60%, and that nerve will start to degenerate if the pressure is sustained for 3 hours. Now, phase 3 of spinal degeneration, or degenerative disc disease, or spinal arthritis, again, whatever you want to call it, this is fusion and permanent damage, severe degeneration. It's caused by long-term uncorrected subluxations. Now, someone at this stage can still benefit from chiropractic care, so there's still hope that you can have better spinal function even if you have some permanent damage in your spinal cord. You're probably wondering, what the heck does this have to do with me? But now that you understand a little bit more about subluxations and degenerative disc disease, let's look at some actual patients and how they were affected by subluxation and how chiropractic care is going to help you. This is Holly. Holly is a mother. She has headaches, and when she has these headaches, she misses ball games, she misses recitals, she misses all kinds of stuff. She has to lock herself in a dark room for hours and hours. She's pretty much done. The kids know this. When mom has a headache, she is done for the day. So when we look at this picture of her, she has what they call anterior head syndrome. So this is when the head has gone forward out over the body. So if you could imagine that somebody was holding a bowling ball, so we're imagining the head as a bowling ball. If you held that bowling ball by your side, it would be pretty easy to hold it. You could hold it there for a while. Well, now imagine holding that bowling ball out. It's going to put a lot of strain and stress where that arm connects to your body, because now you've put that bowling ball out in that position. So imagine if your head goes from a position that's above your body to out over your body. Now, a lot of people have anterior head syndrome. And when we're talking about anterior head syndrome, what causes it is a lack of motion in the spine that changes the biomechanical structure. It changes the way the nervous system works, it puts a lot of pressure on it, and it can lead to actual conditions and symptoms that you've heard of, like headaches and neck pain. As you can see in this picture, her head is on top of her shoulders now. It's no longer forward. So after some chiropractic care, her biomechanical structure was corrected. She doesn't have headaches anymore. She doesn't have to take medication, and she has a lot more time to spend with her family. Now, 20% of our patients here are actually kids. So I want to talk a little bit about a girl named Alice. Alice has ADD, ADHD. It's more common in boys, so we see a lot of little boys that have that ADD, ADHD, aggression type syndromes, but she has suffered from this for a while. Alice's mother came in to us and asked if there was anything that we could do for her, because her teacher said that she would no longer be able to go to school because of her behavioral issues. She just could not sit still in the classroom. So the teacher wanted her to be on some serious Schedule II medications like Ritalin, Concerta, Adderall. So she came to us and said, hey, is there anything that you can do for Alice? So I said, bring her in, let's take an x-ray of her neck, let's see how her spine is functioning. As you can see here, there was some straightening of her neck on this x-ray. The atlas bone at the top is flat rather than like an airplane taking off, and it's crimping her brainstem and causing nerve interference and static on her system. The only way that she can calm that static is with spinal motion. When we move our joints, they fire what we call mechanoreceptors. And what they do is they calm the nervous system down. I work with a lot of ADD, ADHD kids, and they're almost always the smartest kids in the classroom. But what we find is that they have to move. It's like therapy for them. When they move, they're able to calm some of that static on their nervous system and focus a little bit better. Now, in this second x-ray, this was after some chiropractic care. You can see the curve coming back in. The atlas looks better. It's tilted up. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better. This takes a lot of pressure off of the nervous system when we see this. What's funny is the teachers actually sent home a letter thanking her parents for medicating Alice, because her behavior is completely different and she's like an entirely different child in the classroom. Alice was never medicated. She was adjusted and her spinal joints had motion restored to take pressure off the nervous system. Think if this was your 8-year-old. Would you rather have them on some serious Schedule II controlled substances where it could have some long-term effects on their health, or correct their spinal motion and allow the body to work the way God intended it to work? Those are some of the things that we need to think about. And that's why we love to treat kids here in our office, because of the huge potential they could have with a properly functioning nervous system due to good motion in their spine and good biomechanical structure. This next person I want to talk about is somebody named Harold. Now, Harold was someone that just moved into the area, and he said, man, you are going to love me. I've been going to the chiropractor for years and years, and I believe in chiropractic, like it's great. You're gonna love me. I said, okay, great. Let's get some x-rays and see what's going on with your spine so we know exactly what we're doing. So when we got the x-rays taken, we see this. Harold's low back is supposed to be straight when we look at it from this orientation, and it is not straight. So you can imagine, I was shocked when I saw his x-ray. I asked Harold, how often did you go to the chiropractor for those years and years you were going? Well, he said they allowed me to go about 10 times a year. Now, who do you think they meant when he said they? His insurance company, that's right. So they allowed him 10 times a year, and his chiropractor just recommended what his insurance would cover. Anytime you're taking your insurance company's recommendations for your health, you are never going to be healthy. His other chiropractor, who would do heat, ultrasound, and ice, and electrical therapy, and physical therapy, and massage, all that stuff, he spent a lot of money each visit and never got any better. And he didn't know that because his chiropractor never took any x-rays. Not at the beginning of care, not in the middle, not at the end. That's why you're watching this video right now. We want you to understand what we're doing, how it works, why it works, so that you know we're taking pressure off the nerves by improving the biomechanical structure of your spine. That way we don't only help symptoms go away, but actually improve your health. Now this is his second x-ray. As you can see, after the proper frequency, the curve is improved. It's not perfect, but it's a whole lot better. His results were achieved with probably a fourth of the cost as his other chiropractor. Now what's cool is he, like many others, said to me, hey doc, I've been taking omeprazole for 10 years and I don't need it anymore because my reflux is gone. And I've been taking Viagra for 3 years and I don't need that anymore either. Could this have anything to do with it? As you guys can imagine, the nerves that come out of the mid-back and the low back that go into the stomach and the sex organs, they weren't working well because there were subluxations in the area. The brain could not talk to those organs because there were joints in the mid-back and low back that weren't moving very well, and that put pressure on the nerves, stopping that flow of information. I didn't know that he had GERD and ED. I wasn't treating him for those things, but it's pretty amazing what the body can do as far as healing when the pressure is taken off of the nerves by restoring proper motion and structure to the spine. So, knowing what you know now about chiropractic care and how big of an impact it can have on our health, whose life could you change if they knew as well?